Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel and Rod Babers. In this video, we're going to be talking about the legacy of Colin Simmons, and it might be a little more high up on the list of Texas edge rushers all time than you might think with one full season left on the 40 acres to go. This edition of On Texas Football is brought to you by our friends over at Vaughn Lane. We'll tell you more about Vaughn Lane here in a little bit. But, Rod, I'll start with you. When you look at Colin Simmons, where he stands, you start looking at all-time sacks, just the impact he's made from day one. The fact that he's put up the numbers he has in 2 years, you can make a case this is one of the best 2-year runs a Texas edge rusher has ever had.
Basically averaging double-digit sacks now, right? If you look at the kind of 2-year run for him, and still has a bowl game. Don't know how much he's going to play in the bowl game, but that actually does still, I think, contribute to the stats. And next season, if he's a guy that people are just assuming he's going to be a double-digit sack guy, he's once again going to add to his legacy. And I think he is almost a guaranteed to be a double-digit sack guy, considering how many games you play and how often teams are throwing the football these days. And honestly, PK has now shown, whether people like it or not, that he's willing to move him around a lot. Sometimes probably move them around too much, Jeff. I know you've complained about them being, dropping back in coverage a little too much, but he does move them around. I think it's actually going to end up benefiting Colin Simmons in his last year, because now there's more uncertainty about where he's going to be on any given down. He's got the best ball get off in the history of Texas football. I think he's probably got the best ball get off in college football right now. I've talked to Brian Robertson about it, and he said, it's not just he's really quick off the ball, but that he's definitely keying in on something, whether the movements, subtle movements of the center, or whether it be a snap count that he's hearing. He said he is so fast off the football, off the edge, that he believes, in addition to his BGO, that he's keying in on some things. So intellectually, this guy also is a high-level player. And, there were times, this year where he was – he wasn't always dialed in or locked in. He started slow. Started off really slow. There were people questioning, oh man, there are actually some games where he made little to no impact in the games, and started to heat up a little bit later on in the season. So I think that's another thing that, could affect how dominant he could be in next season, is that he start a little faster. And I think the coaches can help that, depending on how aggressive they are and some of the other players around him step up too. I think that's another key for Colin Simmons' production.
CJ, you've watched him since high school. What's impressed you the most about where he's gone from that guy at Duncanville that was dominant, that we felt like, hey, he's a 5-star guy, he's got high NFL draft potential, to where he is now?
Yeah, I think it's the immediate impact, right? You come in, you're a 9.5 sack guy, you force 3 fumbles as a true freshman, you get the freshman All-American honors, and you lived up right away to the expectations and the high demand that Texas had hoped for you, right? And I go back to Anthony Hill. When your 5-stars come in and immediately play like 5-stars, boy, is that a relief to your program. And for this instance, coming off the edge, there's probably not a more important position outside of quarterback for that immediate impact to be felt. So, Rod, you mentioned it a little bit there. The 25 season, it got off to a slow, kind of a rocky start for Colin Simmons, right? Penalties were a big issue early on. And then the minute he got into SEC play, boy, he took over. And he led the conference in pressures, right? He was second in sacks. He had 3 forced fumbles for the second straight season. The impact is felt, and I can't help but think, what might, an Ethan – or excuse me, a Lance Jackson look like on the opposite side of him going into his sophomore season, right? Because no disrespect to Ethan Burke, he was a fine edge rusher, more so in the run game than the pass game. I know he had a number of sacks as well in 2025, but that wasn't his forte. I don't think necessarily teams went in circling Big 91 saying, hey, we got to assign a tight end or chip with a running back. No, they're putting all of that attention over to Colin Simmons. So now that you can put 2 really elite edge rushers on opposite sides of one another in 2026, I'm thinking, hey, that's more one-on-one opportunities for Colin Simmons. And as a third-year player, we talk about 10 sacks. I think that's the floor for next year for Colin.
Yeah, Rod, when you start looking at his numbers through his time at Texas to this point, he's sitting right at 20 sacks, 27.5 tackles for loss. And we were looking at it before the show started. He's just a couple of sacks away from being tied in a group in 12th place all time in school history. And honestly, getting to that elusive 30 sack club, there's only 3 guys right now that are in the 30 sack club ever. Rod, is there a chance by the time we get to the end of 2026, we could be talking about one of the best careers a Texas edge rusher's had, considering everything he'll have done it in 3 years?
I think you're right. Considering, I mean, he's been so productive, and I think we've kind of taken it for granted and hadn't really acknowledged how dominant he has been while he's been here in Texas. You go look at, that his freshman campaign, and this is my conspiracy theory, and I'll stick with it. I think the NASCAR package was born and created to weaponize Colin Simmons. I think they were thinking, man, how are we to get this young guy on the field? All right. He's not necessarily ready to play every down. We got vets, Barron, Sorrell, Ethan Berg, but he's got to play. Got to find a way to get him on the field. Because we did the same thing with Derek Johnson when I was there. It's like, no, let's give him a package. Let's do it. He's worth it. We got to find a way to get that guy on the field. He's a difference maker. And ultimately he'll end up getting more reps, and then he'll end up being like our foundational piece, which DJ did. But same thing with Colin Simmons. Now he's your foundational piece. And if you're on the other side of Colin Simmons, you get ready to potentially live your NFL dreams, right? Because you're going to get a lot less attention. You'll get a lot of one-on-one assignments and blocking. They got to pay a lot of attention to Colin Simmons, especially on passing downs. And that's why a big part of why Ethan Burke had his career year. I think it's a big part of why the edge position at Texas is kind of flourishing. Recently, Barron Sorrell, and I think Trey Moore is going to try to add to that too as well. Ethan Burke will, is because now you're bringing in such high level talent. I think Ethan Burke's pushing. I think with Ethan Burke, what he did this year, he's being pushed by this young guy, Colin Simmons. I've been in the room with young talent like that. I was in the room with a young Huff Daddy. I was in the room with a young Cedric Griffin, a young Nathan Basher. Those young guys, man, they do a lot to really elevate the entire room, the competitive level of the room. I mean, that guy's going to be a top 15 pick, top 10 pick, right? That's what we're talking about here. Those guys, man, trust me, you got to elevate. And I think that's why that edge room right now is one of the best in the country. It has no coincidence. Yes, it's part of him being a part of it, but everybody now feels the pressure. Like I have to, play on that level. I want to outplay him. I mean, that's a big, trust me, it's part of the brotherhood. I want to outplay Quentin Jammer in the same room with him. I was trying to outplay, Nathan Vasher. That's part of it. And I think that's also what a lot of the guys are benefiting from is, hey man, they're trying to outplay one another and outcompete. And that room right there, you got the high standard potentially in the country to look at least one of them with Colin Simmons.
We'll keep this conversation rolling here in just a second. But Rod, before we go any further, let's let everybody know about our good friends over at Von Lane.
Yes, indeed. Thank you to our friends over at Von Lane. We appreciate them and all of their support of On Texas Football. This holiday season coming up, guys, we know that you're trying to get home to see the family. You may have some business you're trying to wrap up right before the holidays, and getting around, whether you're talking about in the state of Texas or around the state of Texas, can be a hassle, especially with TSA being a hassle. And we're talking about airport delays and all the stress of dealing with any airport experience. Also driving yourself, dealing with traffic and road rage. Then you're tired from either jet lag or tired from driving yourself all over the state. Folks, don't worry about that. With our friends over at Von Lane, they have you covered. No TSA, no stress. Sink into one of just 22 oversized seats, reclined for 140 degrees. You can fire up the Wi-Fi, plug in your laptop, lean back with a cold beverage, cold beer, a cocktail while your attendant takes care of the rest. Von Lane is booking right now through the rest of the year. So secure your seat for any of the holiday experiences coming up, or if you just want to wrap up some business or go visit family at vonlane.com. Use the promo code OTF25 to save $20 off your first ride with Von Lane. Von Lane, your private jet on wheels.
All right. Thank you, Rod. CJ, before we go any further, I want to just clear up some stats real quick. So Colin Simmons, if he has 2 sacks in the bowl game, and again, to your point, Rod, bowl stats now do count towards the guy's single season and career numbers. 2 sacks will give him 22 for his career. That would send him into the 2026 season tied with Alex Okafor, Brian Arakpo, Corey Redding, Shane Dronette, and James Patton for 12th on the school's career list. You talk about guys that can get after the quarterback. All of those guys I just mentioned do it, and that'll give him 13 for the season. That would tie him for the fifth best single season sack total ever for a Longhorn. Jackson Jeffcoat in 2013 was the most recent one who did it. Dwight Jefferson in 1978, and then Tim Campbell in 1975. But CJ, for me with Colin Simmons, it goes beyond the sacks, because you look at Pro Football Focus, they keep track of a stat called stops. Basically, it's a solo tackle that constitutes a failure for the offense. He finished the regular season third among SEC edge defenders with 32. With 29, and that was second on the team behind only Anthony Hill. Anthony Hill had 30. So, and really, CJ, the Florida game was really where it kind of, Rod, you mentioned the slow start. The Florida game was where it turned around for him. We saw him at times like single-handedly take over that game. But CJ, is it short-sighted to say the way we look at Arch and Manning, where, hey, you want to load up in the portal to go all in with Arch for 1 year? Is it short-sighted to say, hey, you need to put enough around Colin Simmons to where you can really take advantage of this year, just pull out all the stops to make sure teams cannot just solely focus on him all the time?
Yeah, and look, that plays into a large part of the conversation around, Lance Jackson. Does he turn into what you hope he does after seeing a very talented and productive first year, right? Because we talk about it. You don't want to be able to allow a nub tight end or a chip from the running back to stall a Colin Simmons pass rush, because that's your best football player going into 2026. He is your best edge rusher. He's probably the best edge rusher in all of the country. In fact, take the probably off. He is, based off of what I've seen the last 2 years. So look, and you mentioned, I'm glad you did, Jeff, that Florida game and the run stopping ability of Colin Simmons. We know he can get after the quarterback. He's got 6 forced fumbles in 2 years, but his ability to stop the run is something that has been very underrated in his game. He had a tackle for loss or sack in every single SEC game this year, except for Mississippi State, in which he had 6 tackles, the most that he was attributed for in the entire season. So he's remained extremely active, regardless if he's getting home to the quarterback or not. On top of that, you got to make sure that your run defense is stout. Allow these guys to bounce to the outside for the quickness of Colin Simmons. And that one possession against Florida, I know exactly what you're talking about. They ran the football at him 3 consecutive times. Colin Simmons made the tackle at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage on all 3 plays. He got attributed for 1 tackle for loss, one of which was called back for a penalty, and the other, I think they said he gained the line of scrimmage originally. So look, not a single yard was gained. In fact, I think 11 or 12 yards in total were lost because of Colin Simmons' ability to stop the run, but only one of those tackles for loss was credited. So that, to me, is the biggest part for Colin. Make sure that he gets his love when it comes to that run-stopping ability as well. Lightning quick off the edge.
Yeah, that was the big knock. Oh, I was a big knock. That's what people were criticizing him for as a young player, as a freshman. Hey, run right at him, right? What do you do against an elite pass rusher? Let's run right at him.
It was the Micah plan, right?
Exactly. It's exactly right? Because coming out of that NASCAR package, don't say all those 9 sacks, 6 of those came from that NASCAR package. So it was like, hey, this is running. He's just a natural pass rusher. So the challenge for him in the offseason was, hey, how are you going to be more stout against the run? How are you going to be just as disruptive against the run? And I will say this year, he was really disruptive versus the run. He was causing a lot of havoc in the run game. So I can't wait to see now with him more of a well-rounded game. I remember talking to B-Rob about it, him saying, hey, now he's got to learn how to, and this was during this last season, how does he affect the game other than being a pass rusher? We know you can do that, and teams know you can do that, but teams ain't going to let you do that all the time. They're not going to let you just wreak havoc as a pass rusher. No, they're literally game planning against that. They're coaching against that. How else are you going to affect the game and be an impact player? And just to you guys' point in the stats you brought up, he's doing it as a run defender too. And I think that's why I know PK does it and people don't like it. Give him credit. That's why I think PK does move him around sometimes. He's trying to find other ways for him to be impactful, but that should not be dropping in coverage, to Jeff's point. It should not be dropping other ways, but not that way. No.
Yeah, especially on third down. That's CJ. I'll give you the last word here, and I'll point this out. I pointed out Arch's numbers in those 3 top 10 wins Texas had. You look at Colin Simmons' numbers for the year, but in those 3 wins against Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, and Texas A&M, 4.5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. And CJ, as we look, I know he's got the bowl game against Michigan to go, but as we look forward to 2026, I think about the fact that he opened 25, 0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss against Ohio State I got a feeling that's going to motivate him all throughout the offseason.
Yeah, 100%. And look, again, it's just been so impressive what he's been able to do over 2 years. The numbers that we just went through, I think, obviously tell the story, but his impact on this defense and what Texas can be able to build around him should allow for the Longhorns to field yet again a very talented and havoc full of defense, right? So that's encouraging. And for Colin, look, you're 1 year away from potentially etching yourself as a top 3, top 4 sack getter all time at the University of Texas. Oh, by the way, you've done this entirely in the SEC. So I don't want to lose sight of that. That's also been madly impressive as well. He'll leave the University of Texas around this time next fall, hopefully, or hopefully it's a little bit deeper into the winter after a playoff run, right? But he'll leave the University of Texas as one of, if not the greatest edge rushers that we've seen, at least in my lifetime for sure.
CJ, you mentioned Anthony Hill to start, and I'll say the same thing about Colin Simmons. When you recruit a 5-star guy, you get him in your program, this is exactly what you hope to get in terms of your return on investment. And hey, one more season to go with Colin Simmons. We'll see what the future holds in 2026. Rod, CJ, thank you guys for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to our friends over at Von Lane for sponsoring it. If you're not a member over at ontexasfootball.com, that's all right. You can get over to the site right now and sign up using the promo code OTFOG to get 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com for just $39.95. Make sure that you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's here on the channel or on the site, you're not missing any of our Longhorn coverage all year round. For Rod, for CJ, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, welcome.